All right, welcome, my friends, to another episode of Extreme Health Radio. I'm super happy you are here. Happy Friday. I hope you're having a great day so far. Let me turn this down a little bit. Yeah, I hope you're having a great day wherever you are in the world. And this is episode 632. So if you guys want to grab the show notes, we'll put links to everything that we talk about at extremehealthradio.com / what number is it? 632. So everything will be there if you guys want to learn more about this. This is going to be a fun show because we are going to be talking about vaccines. And what's interesting is I'm wondering if YouTube is even going to allow this video to be to be on YouTube after this, because I'm doing a little experiment. I didn't even put vaccines in the title. I didn't put vaccines in the description. And you know what's interesting is I was doing a little research on Dr. Baker before the show, and I went to his Facebook page, and I put it on our Instagram story, I think it was, but went to his Facebook page and I looked and I saw a little blurb that says, this page posts about vaccines. If you want to learn more about vaccine and vaccine safety, go to Wikipedia and learn all about it. And so I just find it so fascinating that there's such a war for ideas and a war on information, and it's getting to the point now where it's getting, in my opinion, completely out of control. So this is going to be a really good show, and he's got a really awesome project called Project 180, and we're going to talk about that during the show. And I was having a difficult time before the show researching and coming up with a good bio for the good doc, but I know he's the guy behind Project 180, as well as his clinic and prehabbing.com and drstephenbaker.com. So this is going to be a fun show. So Doc, thank you so much, my friend, for being on the show today.
Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So we are talking about before the show. I was going through your Project 180 members area, and I was looking at the vaccine exemptions area, and California, which is the state that I live in, happens to be the only state where you can't get an exemption. Crazy, right?
Well, there's four. So there's California, West Virginia, Mississippi, and New York. They've all stripped people of their rights to a religious exemption. And so what we did was we created a state-specific religious exemption for all 46 states that still allow it. And as far as California goes, I don't know what to tell you, man. You guys you're in deep waters.
Yeah, we're crazy. That's no doubt about it. Whereabouts are you located, if you want to say?
I'm up in Boise, Idaho.
Okay. Now, as far as Boise, Idaho goes, what do you think the future of that state and their vaccine and your vaccine laws are going to be?
I don't know. I think Idaho, Texas, some of these other states that are recognized as way more conservative, way more on the opposite end of California, if you will. I think that we're either going to be the last ones to go, or they're going to try to take us down first, because if they can get Texas and Idaho, well then, shoot, we could get everybody, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's right. Texas and Idaho, you guys are really kind of like the freedom fighters of of America. It's pretty crazy.
Maybe we'll just kind of divide up, in Texas, Idaho, maybe Wyoming, Montana. We'll just become one country, and then California, New York, and have everybody else. I don't know.
Yeah,
I suppose.
I think maybe we should just secede and be our own state, be our own, do a 52nd or 51st state or our own country. We should do something like that. Secede from the union.
You mean a country where people actually don't want to be lied to 24/7, forced into vaccinating their kids and told that medication and surgery is the only answer? Yeah, I think that would be a pretty legitimate place to live.
I know. It's funny, isn't it, how much you hear about, freedom of information and schools and the media not being in bed with the government, and everyone on the street would say, oh, yeah, we have a free press and things like that. But, it's so obvious that if you live in our world, all you see all day long is just people's accounts being banned, people being deplatformed. It's definitely a war of ideas, isn't it?
Well, the media, like the definition of media, I was listening to Miles Monroe the other day, and he talks about media being the middle and the in-between, between the actual source and the person that gets the information. There's the middle, there's the media. And the media is as important or more important than the source, because regardless of what the source is or what the information really is, it's the media that decides what you really hear. I think it's pretty clear that there's a lot of censorship going on. A year ago, I did a video on the flu shot, and I had a much smaller audience, and that video went up over 800,000 views on Facebook. And this year I did a similar video, I would argue probably better done, with a much larger audience to be able to share and watch. And I think it might have tipped over 8,000 views.
Jeez, unreal. Yeah, it's funny because before the show, I was doing my little red light therapy device, and I was doing my magnetic mat that I lay on, and while I was laying down, I usually watch like a documentary or something, but there's a really good channel on YouTube called Truth Stream Media, and they do all these little documentaries, these mini documentaries about politics and health and all kinds of interesting information. And their latest video was all about how they're being demonetized, they're being deplatformed, they have all these strikes against them, and eventually they're going to have to move all of their content over to a different channel. And whether it's health or media or politics, like there's definitely censorship going on.
Yeah, when we were looking at how and where we were going to house all the videos for Project 180, that was a struggle because with YouTube, I mean, who knows? And we looked at what's the name of the other viewer? It's way more common.
Vimeo.
Vimeo, yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
We were going to put stuff on Vimeo, and we found out that Vimeo was completely pro-vaccine, and they find out anything, they're going to just erase everything. So we ended up with Wistia, and so far we've been super excited about Wistia. Haven't said a word, haven't done any issues with our website. Super user-friendly, got a lot of great features, so that's where we landed.
Wow, that's interesting because we have an academy ourselves, and all of our videos inside of our members area is done through Vimeo. How did you find that information out about Vimeo? I'm curious because now I'm wondering if we need to switch over.
I was on the phone with Jack Wolfson, paleocardiologist, and any videos that he had put on there that had to do with vaccines got pulled off, and they shut down his account. And then I'm part of I guess you'd call it kind of an underground group of doctors, scientists, people that think like we think, and it's all set up by somebody that runs I don't want to say his name, but he runs a big health website, and so that's basically a huge chain of emails that I'm a part of. I get a chance to read, and all the censorship stuff, all the corrupt things that are going on. It all gets talked about in this underground email circulation before the rest of the world knows about it. And so I can go on there and ask, hey, what about this? And they're like, oh, no, don't do that.
Oh my God.
That's kind of where I get some of my insider information, I guess.
Jeez, wow. It's amazing what's going on. But you know what? It makes sense, because if you're the powers that be and you're the pharmaceutical companies, you want to protect, your profit. And I was reading something just a while back that I think it was adults now are going to be or are representing a 70% profit increase for the pharmaceutical industry. Like if they get adult vaccines going, that would represent 70% of their profit from vaccines. And I don't know if that's true or not, but man, I can tell that they're going to start going after adults next,
Well, 10 years ago when I started in practice, when I'm talking to my new patients and I'm talking to them about how, look, healthcare is drugs and surgery, and the medical system has two answers for you. Take a pill for that, or we'll cut it out because somehow you're built with extra parts. It was hard to get people to get on board with the fact that drugs are not the answer. Mm-hmm. Well, we're in a time now where nobody really wants drugs anymore. We've seen all the commercials. People are hip to the side effects. Like they get it. And they want a better solution, so they're trying to get away from that. So I believe that that's one of the reasons why pharma is going so hard at vaccines, is because there's a fear model. And if you can make somebody afraid of something, then it's very easy to sell them something that solves that solution. Mm-hmm. But the part that makes my skin crawl is they're the only industry in the world that convinces you through a complete deception that you need product A. Product A causes a disease or problem, and they're the only ones that have a solution for that. And somehow okay. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. So they're going after adults with vaccines because if they can get adults to be a part of vaccinations, then they got customers out of childhood. And right now, the number one selling vaccine in the world is Prevnar 13, which is for pneumonia. And the number two hottest selling vaccine is HPV. Mm-hmm. So they're already making quite a bit of money. HPV is still in the childhood schedule, but it's on the outside edges. It's for the older kids, and they're going to start giving that to adults as well. Because I mean, God forbid you're sexually active and you get HPV, which 90% of the population has, and it goes away within 2 years if you do nothing. Because we better worry about that.
That's so crazy. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and it was so interesting. This guy was on there, and he was like one of those insider kind of guys, like you were telling me about a little bit before we started recording. But he was a former insider of, I think, a pharmaceutical industry, and he might have been a CEO. I have to go back and listen, but I listen to a lot of podcasts. So he was talking about, like, no one really understands just how powerful the pharmaceutical industry is. And he said, just to sort of let everyone know, the pharmaceutical connection to politics and to government makes the oil industry pale in comparison. He was saying these pharmaceutical companies are so powerful, more powerful than anyone could ever imagine. And it makes the oil industry, which our entire energy is built on right now, it makes them pale in comparison. And I just thought, whoa, that is really eye-opening.
I believe that the comparison is pharma outspends oil and tobacco combined. Oil and tobacco combined, pharma outspends them 3-1 as far as lobbying and giving the government money.
3-1.
It's crazy. Ugly, bro. Like, if you own the government, I mean, where's it stop?
Yeah, it's really disturbing. And what's really disturbing to me is that somehow people, I guess this just goes into how programmed people are, because you could do a pharmaceutical commercial, and I think these came out like in the late 90s when they started allowing this here in America. But you could have like a 60-second ending of that commercial be all the side effects, right? But then they tell you to go, ask your doctor, as if the doctor is going to tell you not to take a drug, right? But go ask your doctor like it's this open-minded thing. But even with those amendments at the end, 60 seconds of all the quote side effects, they're still somehow turning a profit. Like, I don't know how that's possible. It's crazy.
I guess when they were told that they had to put that 60 seconds about how you're going to bleed out of your eyes and every other orifice, but don't worry, at least you don't cough anymore. Yeah. When they were told they had to put that, someone probably had to put that in there thinking that would somehow change something. But like you just said, it clearly didn't. And all people here, because remember, we live in a culture where we want it quick. We want the quick fix. We want the medication. In my town right now, there's what you would call gas stations going up all over the place. But in reality, that's not a gas station. That's a convenience store, because we're no longer up for going into a grocery store. We need to stop and get our food at a convenience store, which is not even real food. Mm-hmm. And we as a country have gotten so lazy. Get this, they're putting drive-up windows at convenience stores now. So I think that the commercial could tell you you're going to flat out die if you take the pill, and people would still do it just simply because they want something quick and easy, and they're just too lazy to actually get healthy.
Yeah, it's crazy, because you start thinking about, like, where does all this come from? Why do people believe that, even though they do everything that you just said? Is it like, where does it start? Does it start with our education system and trusting guys in white lab coats and being so busy and being so sick and so in debt that you don't have time to do research? Like, why are people willing to just say, oh, you know what, the doctor knows best, and I'll take a pill and not question it as long as my symptoms go away? I don't understand where the beginning of that stems from. It's bizarre.
Well, the thing is that there's a few people that you're supposed to trust. You're supposed to trust your spouse, you're supposed to trust your doctor, and probably your accountant. Like, those are the three people you don't want them lying to you, right? And so if I could pick somebody that's going to further this deception, it's going to be the doctors. And way back in the day when Rockefeller started really having a big effect in medicine, so like brief, like very simple history of medicine. Way back in the day, there used to be a lot more naturopathic type of stuff, more chiropractic, more of all those things.
Mm-hmm.
And the pharmaceutical industry needed something. And so the oil companies basically got money into healthcare, and they started trying to patent these drugs. So they would take and they would try to create a patent on something that could be done naturally with their chemical concoction. And that only got furthered because they would pump a ton of money into medical schools, give out scholarships, pay for a bunch of stuff. And so it worked itself into where that's how essentially the pharmaceutical companies started training doctors from ground zero from day one. And so that's when, in reality, with all due respect to medical doctors that are saving lives and helping people, because they are out there, that's how the majority of their profession became puppets to big pharma, was because they were being taught and trained from the get-go, because pharma had infiltrated the schools because they had deep financial roots there. So if the doctors are brainwashed and we're trained to trust the doctor because they went to school longer than us, then it's pretty easy for the doctor to then therefore, not out of a position of, I don't think doctors are bad people, but they actually believe this crap. And so then they tell the patient with such conviction that the patient really has no other option but to believe it. And that started 50 plus years ago. So it's just a cycle that we've been stuck in.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was with my mom. The whole reason why I got into this field of natural health is because my mom was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma back in '95. And that sort of catapulted me into this weird, crazy world that we're in now. But recently she had a spot on her breast. And so she was talking to her oncologist, and I was there. And I could just see, I could see right through. So my dad and my mom and myself were in this little room with this oncologist talking about how he's going to cure my mom's cancer. And I just thought, wow, it must be so nice to be able to use that C word, and not be fearful of being, taking your license away or being, stopped in some way. But at the end, he goes through all this information about how this new chemotherapy is going to do this and going to do that and all this stuff. And then at the end of it, he looks and he leans down and says to my mom, "Okay, well, I think we just about covered everything. Are you ready to commit?" And I just thought, what is this, a used car salesman? Or are you trying to sell? Are you ready to commit? I just could see right through. And it's just, the sad thing is that people don't see that. People don't see that as a blatant sales job. They look at it as research and an objective doctor, but they don't see it as a sales pitch. It's crazy.
The cancer industry is the worst. I mean, if you think about it, there's a great documentary called Cut, Poison, Burn. And literally, they only have three options if you have cancer. They're either going to cut it out, they're going to burn it out with radiation, which causes cancer, or they're going to poison it out with chemotherapy, which we know is literally mustard gas. And when nurses or doctors administer chemotherapy, they have to wear hazmat suits. But somehow the guy wearing a hazmat suit is putting this inside of my body, and I'm supposed to be okay with it. We're so far removed from what healing and health actually is. And in reality, yep, there we go. And in reality, if people understood what health is, that's one of the first things I have to go through with my patients is how do we define health? And once we can get a good foundation, then you would realize that there's no way you can poison yourself into health.
So we were talking a little bit before the show that, this whole vaccine thing isn't even really your intention when you first started out, because you're in the business of helping people to heal and helping their bodies to restore themselves and showing people their regenerative abilities and to really help people. But somehow along the way you got into the vaccine thing. And so tell people a little bit about your history. I guess we should have done this at the beginning, but your true intention wasn't even to get into all this stuff, was it?
No, again, your body's designed to heal, and you were created from two cells, and you are over you're trillions now. So for me, that's an amazing thing. the fact that your heart's beating, your lungs are breathing. If I cut your finger, I don't have to say anything, but it'll bleed, scab, and eventually heal. There's something going on inside of our bodies that we've got to be more aware of, and not only be aware of it, but support it and stop getting in the way. Mm-hmm. And so chiropractic, rest, real straight up chiropractic, not watered down back pain relief or like back shocker stimulator things or like tables you roll on or something like that. Real chiropractic, the foundation is the power that made the body heals the body. And that power does not need any help, but it can't have any interference. And so chiropractic calls it innate intelligence. You're born with it. But the reason why my job is so easy, like people have a hard time understanding how we get the results we get. Everything from migraines going away, depression going away, digestive issues, autoimmune disease, cancer reversing, kids no longer wetting the bed. I mean, you name it. We see it in the office on a regular basis getting better. Mm-hmm. But it's so simple because all we have to do is be good at figuring out what is interfering with your body's ability to heal itself, knowing that if we get the interference out of the way, it's on its way to the right destination. So I'm going to go back to the vaccine. I know you asked me a separate question, but I think that as an audience, when I get a chance to speak, and I thank you for having me today, I get a chance to speak, if people can grasp onto that one concept, then they can build from there and go anywhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because really, ultimately, it's the creativity and the determination to remove those obstacles, right? Because in today's modern world, we're looking at like 60,000 new chemicals since the early 1960s being introduced into our environment, 84,000 chemicals in commerce, chemtrails raining down on us, heavy metals, parasites, vaccines, and chemicals in foods. And so it's really a matter of, if you can remove all of that stuff, the body will just work, right?
If you could even just remove part of it, like if people just go, oh, okay, like it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month, right? So if we just talk about, instead of spending all this money talking about mammograms, which are virtually, I'm going to go there right now.
Yeah.
What if instead of wearing an antiperspirant, right? Because we get rid of toxins when we sweat, toxins come out of our armpits. If we wear an antiperspirant, then it's keeping the toxins there. And the majority of all breast cancer is found right in the axillary node, which is right where it's all been building up. So if we just simply start telling women, hey, just wear a deodorant, not an antiperspirant, allow yourself to sweat, get rid of the toxins, we would reduce breast cancer by a pile. And we start talking about vitamin D doing the same thing. We could spend $1 million on commercials and reduce breast cancer by huge percentages, better than the medical industry is doing by spending billions of dollars on ads to get people to go in and get mammograms and buy pink crap. But the interference, we don't even have to worry about removing it all. We just need to figure out what caused the current problem, because any health-related problem is either a deficiency or a toxicity. All we have to do is go, okay, what am I deficient in? Add that. What am I toxic in? Take that away. And that starts to get easier and easier. And it shouldn't have to be an overwhelming thing, because to eliminate all the toxins in the world is never going to happen. But have you had your spine checked? Have you had your nervous system checked for interference? I would argue that that's the number one thing that people are missing. Everybody's, oh yeah, I'm on board with the detox. Oh yeah, I'll eat better. Do you go to a chiropractor on a regular basis and have your central nervous system evaluated? And they look at you like, what would I do that for? That's what controls all healing and functions. If you're not doing that, you're just kind of spinning your wheels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I hear you. I hear you completely. And, some of these things are so easy to prevent. Like we had a show a couple years ago with a guy, Sidney Ross Singer, and he's been on a couple times from Hawaii. And he's written extensively about what you were talking about before, which is the breast cancer and the connection to bras, and not just the metal underwiring, that is an attractor for electromagnetic fields, but also it chokes off your lymphatic system right there. And so, it's just, if we really cared about people, we wouldn't get people to buy, chicken and pink buckets, to prevent breast cancer. We'd educate them, and all women would know these types of things. But, the whole pink ribbon campaign is itself an entire fraud as well. It's just crazy. Nuts.
Well, first of all, Zeneca, which later turned into AstraZeneca, a pharmaceutical company that makes plastics as well. They're the one that started the Cancer Awareness Month back in the 80s. They teamed up with the American Cancer Society and started Cancer Awareness Month in order to have more mammograms done in order to try to find more breast cancer. Well, the same company makes tamoxifen, which is a breast cancer drug that has also been recognized as a carcinogen ever since it came out.
Oh.
And so the entire month is based on lies and garbage that's been promoted by a pharmaceutical company so that they can find more cancer and therefore sell more drugs. That's all it is. And so this is an article from the New England Journal of Medicine. Out of every 2,500 mammograms that are done, there's 1,000 false positives. That means that 1,000 women out of every 2,500 go home freaked out because they might have found something. Of that, there's 500 biopsies, unnecessary biopsies done. And of that, usually on average, 5 women will undergo full treatment for something that was never going to be fatal in the first place. And so that's all a product of promoting more mammograms and go get checked to save your life, which is all started by a pharma company.
It's so crazy. Like, it's so crazy how deep it runs. We had a guy back on this show a couple of years ago, a friend of ours, Dr. Stephen Hines. He has a clinic, for those that are interested, in San Angelo, Texas. And he's got another clinic on the other side of the border in Mexico where he's able to actually do the things that, fully help people. But it's funny. He was talking to people. Yeah, I know, right? It's like you have to have 2 separate clinics, right? So he was saying that some of these breast cancer biopsies, because he's got a lot of friends that are in the medical world, some doctor friends as well. And he asked them, he said, do you ever assay these biopsies for mold? And they said, no, we don't. And he said, well, why? And he said, well, because most of these biopsies are cancerous anyway, and so they're not going to respond to, mold treatment or anything like that. There's no fungus involved here. And so he started doing high-dose IV antifungal therapies with people, and he was showing that 60% of the people that he was doing these on, these women, their tumors, whatever they were, responded to this anti-mold or antifungal IV therapy, which led to him to either say either these tumors are mold or these tumors are mold and not tumors at all because they're responding to these high-dose antifungals, which I thought that's crazy, right? But it goes back to what you said where there's just a lot of money in these mammograms and these chemotherapy treatments, It's crazy.
Well, yeah, it's a money thing, and don't get me wrong, I support women that have beat breast cancer. I support all of that. I have a problem with the definition of a survivor being somebody that simply lived 5 years after the diagnosis, even if they die of a different type of cancer. We're still calling those survivors. So that's one of the ways that they manipulate the numbers so that we can think that the industry is actually getting better, when in reality, people are still dying of cancer. But my biggest frustration with that is that all this money being raised, if I go out and I run a race, or I go out and buy pink stocks, or I own a store and I put pink lids on all my coffee, all of that money is going to corporations. All that money is going to research to find new drugs. And none of that is going to actually fight cancer. I wish we would take the money and we would find a woman who survived breast cancer and has medical bills through the roof and give it to her. I wish we'd take that money and we would find the single dad that's got 3 kids and he's spending all of his time trying to be a great dad and provide for his 3 kids because his wife is gone, and give him a $100,000 scholarship instead of just padding the pockets. The American Cancer Society, and this is on that movie Cut, Poison, Burn, and this was back in like 2014, they had $2.2 billion in assets. That's land, buildings, cars, everything else. So we're just fueling a corporation is all we're doing. And we're being just duped into thinking that we're actually helping people, when in reality, no survivor, no widow, nobody is actually getting help. They're just left bankrupt to the industry.
It's such fascinating information when you start digging into where the money goes and all the nefarious beginnings of all this stuff. We're with Dr. Stephen Baker. If you guys want to check out his website, it's Dr. Stephen Baker, Steven Baker.com, and he's the man behind not just that website, but also Project 180. So if you guys are watching on YouTube, there should be a link down below if you guys want to learn more about this whole project he's doing, and we're going to get into that after the break. And if you have a question for Dr. Baker, I tested thoroughly our Skype connection with Kate before we started the show. So theoretically, it should work. So after the break, if you guys want to check out Dr. Baker and ask him a question on Skype, our handle is Extreme Health Radio. So this will be the first time we've ever done it, but I think it will work. So we'll bring him back for some questions. And also in the chat room, if you have questions, we're going to come back from the break, but make sure to ask them in all caps. That way I can make sure and see them. So we're going to be right back with Dr. Baker right after this.
You're listening to Extreme Health Radio, and I hope you're enjoying this show. Please share it with your friends by tagging @Extreme Health Radio on Instagram. Stay tuned for new shows weekly.
Yeah, my friends. So we're on Instagram, and we'd like to do a lot of stuff on there for as long as they will allow us to have an Instagram account. Who knows how long that will be, but we have a lot of fun sharing our lives, our stories, and what our family's up to and all that good stuff. So if you like the show and you want to tag us or let us know what you think of it, make sure to tag us on Instagram and share some of the shows with your friends. That would be awesome. So one of the things I like to do, and I've been doing a lot more of lately, you probably just saw at the end of that little Instagram thing, is rebounding. And rebounding is an incredible exercise. It's a full lymphatic exercise. And what a lot of people don't realize is that you have more lymphatic system or fluid in your body than you do blood. And it's really important. And, I was talking to a medical doctor, an anesthesiologist a couple days ago, and he was saying that he was never taught anything about the lymph system for some reason, even though you have more of it in your body than blood. And whenever you go to a doctor, if you have a cold or flu, what do they check? They check your armpits to see if you have any swollen lymph nodes. They check your neck, your groin, to see if you're inflamed there. And your lymphatic system is the regulator of your entire body. And what's amazing is that lymphatic cancers are going up. It's on the rise like crazy. So one of the ways to flush your lymphatic system is to jump up and down on a rebounder. And we had a friend of ours, Dr. Sam Byrne, an ophthalmologist, recently do a full workshop inside the Extreme Health Academy. But listen to what he has to say about rebounding.
I wanted to mention about rebounders just for a minute. There's been some studies that rebounders bring down the eye pressure in glaucoma, and it's something that I recommend for people who've been diagnosed with glaucoma. And I've done a lot of videos on the connection between the lymph system and eye health. So I'm right there with you. I think the rebounder is a great activity for improving eye lymph and overall lymph health.
Mm-hmm. I think so too, because what people talk about it, and it being a cellular exercise, you go to the gym and you can't work out like cells in your body or different areas of your body like your nose and your eyes and things like that. But jumping up and down it affects every cell in your body, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah. It impacts the meridians, as you say, the lymph circulation, the cerebral spinal fluid. So, and a lot of people just have lymph chi stagnation. They're not getting enough movement, partly because we're sitting and looking at screens all day.
Mm-hmm. Our modern culture is so crazy, everything we do. Yeah, so if you guys are watching and on YouTube, there's links below for the Bellicon Rebounder, and you can see it probably on screen right now. This is like my favorite rebounder on the market for a lot of different reasons. One is they're just incredibly well made. So they come with springs and or flexi ropes instead of springs, so they're virtually silent. So if you are next to your baby or someone sleeping late at night, you can still do it. The legs fold. They come with bars. You can get those as optional accessories. And that way, if you're older and you're worried about balance, these things are just incredible. And I really recommend for everyone to have rebounding. It's a longevity exercise, and it's an incredible way of increasing bone density, circulation, cleansing the lymph system. It's an anti-aging, it's an anti-disease type of exercise, and it's something I do every single day. So I can't recommend these things enough, and I'm a big fan of the Bellicon in particular. That's the one that we have And I'm just a big fan of the Bellicon Rebounders. So also, I want to share with you something else that I do, which is really cool. So what I like to do is I like to do the rebounder, and then and then after the rebounder, I'll go into the sauna. And the sauna is an incredible way to detoxify your body. And we recently had a guest, Ken Prestner, on the show a couple years ago. Everything is recent now, even though it was a couple years ago. But check out what he had to say.
Also saunas, which I was listening to in the break. I'm a great believer in saunas. In fact, I take a sauna myself nearly every day. They're tremendously effective for detoxifying metals and other toxins from the body. But if you have mercury in your mouth, what you may be doing is, instead of taking the mercury out of your tissues and out through the pores into the sweat, what you may be doing is you may be taking the mercury from your fillings and redistributing it to areas in the body which you don't want to have that mercury arrive at, the brain, the kidneys, and other areas of the body. So you should be careful with detoxification. Detoxification must be done, as I write about in my recovery protocol, in a safe manner. And if you do things safely, and if you follow things closely, the way I write about it in my book, stressing slow and steady, step by step, and doing things safely, then you should have no problem.
Yes, Mr. Prestner, and we have a bunch of saunas that we sell and like on biocharge.me. So what's a really cool thing to do is to jump up and down, get your lymphatic system sort of activated and flushed, and then you can jump in a sauna. And the sauna that we use is the Relax Far Infrared sauna, which is the one, it's a personal sauna that I'm just a big fan of. I love it a lot. But we also have this ozone sauna from Promolife that's really amazing. And so this is like next level sort of combination of ozone and sauna therapy. So but some of these, more expensive ones, this is $4,400 or $4,700 for these more fancy ones. But my favorite by far is the Relax Far Infrared sauna. But we also have the Sauna Space near infrared sauna as well. So a lot of different options on biocharge.me for sauna therapy. So make sure to check some of those out. If you're in the market for sauna, you want to bring some of these things into your life. Yeah, big fan of these sauna therapies. So we're going to be right back with Dr. Baker. If you have any questions, I'll head over to the chat room on YouTube and look for any of you that have questions in all caps, and we'll be right back right after this.
This is Extreme Health Radio, where we're 100% listener supported. Make sure to join the Extreme Health Academy with thousands of other listeners and get real solutions for your health challenges.
Yeah, come on, join us, Extreme Health Academy. A lot of cool things happening, monthly courses that we release there on all kinds of different disease processes and all kinds of cool stuff happening in the Extreme Health Academy. So make sure to check us out over there if you're interested in going further with your health. And we're with Dr. Stephen Baker. drstephenbaker.com is his website. And let me turn him up and let's see. Doc, do you want to take a few questions from the chat room?
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. Let me go on over there and see if you guys have any quick questions. Okay, so this is a good question. We're gonna kind of bounce around a little bit, but I really want to get back to your Project 180, which is the point of all this. But Brandy wants to know, what's the first step to do if one just finds out they have cancer? I mean, that's a deep question, right? He's holding up a book for you audio listeners called The Cancer Killers.
Randy, I would order this book. It's not in circulation anymore, so if you can't find it, I've got about, I think I have 15 copies left. The last one's in my safe, so I don't ever lose it.
Oh, cool.
But written by a past mentor of mine, Dr. Charlie Majors, and Sayer G. and Ben Lerner. But Charlie got diagnosed with stage 4 multiple myeloma. 37% of his bone marrow was producing cancer. And he had one of the best oncologists in the world tell him that he had 6 weeks to live. So he left the hospital, left the medical system, and began doing things radically different. And he coined the phrase, the cause is the cure. And so what he meant by that is we've got to start figuring out what caused this in the first place and understand that cancer is not the problem. Is that your symptoms are not the problem. We don't get sick because we got cancer. We got cancer because we were already sick. And so some part of your body is not functioning or healing like it's supposed to, and that's what led to the cancer. That's what allowed that to develop. And so honestly, the first thing I would do is find that book online. I don't know where it's at or how much it costs, but I'd find that and I'd read it. It's a very short read. He does not waste a single word or page. He's even got protocols of what he was doing, but he goes through everything to understand what is cancer and how do you kill it, not just treat it. It's extremely expensive for the book. I mean, we used to buy these books for $20, $25. I think it's more expensive because it doesn't exist anymore. It's not in circulation. But I can promise you that you'll be happy with that book.
Yeah, I'm looking at it here on Amazon. It says $54 on Amazon, which is crazy, right?
It is crazy, but you got to remember that they're scrubbing. So after Dr. Charlie died, for some reason they stopped making the book. I'm gonna get a hold of Sarah G and Dr. Ben Lerner and ask him to start making again, because it literally is that good that we should have it produced everywhere. But I'm assuming that when they start scrubbing everything that helps people be healthy off the internet, which they're doing, and you have a book that's not in circulation, there's probably people that are capitalizing on that, and so they're selling it for more money than what they paid for it. But I still think, honestly, that $54 is a really good investment for that book, because that book would give you, Brandy, it'd give you the foundation you need to start implementing protocols, taking certain supplements, doing everything you need to do based off a really simplistic understanding.
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. So this next question is pretty interesting, from Deborah in the chat room on YouTube, and I don't know anything about this, but maybe you do, Doc. She says, "Thank you. Do you know anything about VANE, VANE, after HPV?" I've never heard about that. Have you? VANE?
I'm assuming it's an acronym for something, but no. If we can come back to her question in a little bit, I'd like to know more about what that is, or she can email me. Deborah, if you want to email me, it's drstevenbaker@gmail.com, and I'd be happy to look into that. Or if you can give me more information, I'd be happy to give you what I have. But I can talk about HPV, I can talk about HPV vaccine, but I do not know what VANE is, no.
Yeah, VANE, I'm not sure exactly either. Yeah, if you guys can type your question in all caps, that way it's easy for me to make sure I don't miss them. Lorraine wants to know, are there things you can do to regulate your immune system? It's a good question.
Well, vitamin D is one thing that helps to boost the immune system. And in relation to cancer, vitamin D is what triggers a gene called P53, and that's responsible for cell apoptosis, or cell death.
Okay.
And so that's one of the ways that vitamin D helps fight cancer. Elderberry syrup is all over the place. I just had a patient yesterday tell me that they found a recipe and they've been making their own. One of the things that I tell my patients, and I've got a workshop on the immune system coming up on Wednesday, but I'd love to talk about autoimmune disease at some point in the show if we have time, and how that gets started and kind of why that's on rampage.
Sure.
Remember that your nervous system controls your immune system. And I know that your lymphatics is part of your immune system. So is your spleen, your thymus, all kinds of other stuff. But again, there's a lot of research out there that shows when you stimulate the nervous system, it actually increases interleukin-2. It does all kinds of different stuff. Your stress levels have an effect on your immune system. When cortisol goes up, aka your fight or flight or your stress response, when that goes up, things called immunoglobulins, which are in your nose and your mouth and protect you against bacteria and viruses, the number of immunoglobulins actually goes down. And so you'll find that your immune system is not as effective when you're really stressed out or tired because of that. And so one of the ways is obviously chiropractic. When you get adjusted, that fires signals up your spinal cord to your brain, reduces your sympathetic or fight or flight, and increases what's called parasympathetic, or rest and digest. The other way you can do that is to go for a run, exercise, move, because every time a bone in your body moves, it has a joint. And when a joint moves, it sends those same signals up the spinal cord to the brain, which physiologically, scientifically has to reduce your stress response. So if you're stressed out and or your immune system suffering, exercise is a legitimate way to help that.
Mm-hmm. So you wanted to talk a little bit about autoimmune because, like you mentioned, I mean, it's going up like crazy. We've done a number of shows on it, but yeah, people are being diagnosed all the time with these autoimmune conditions. Crazy. I have friends, everyone has friends that have this, right?
Well, right now there's over 50 million Americans. And so that's a crazy number. And it's going up, And whether you want to believe it's vaccines or not, I'm going to explain to you why vaccines themselves are creating autoimmune disease. You could also be metal in your mouth, but vaccines are the most consistently the reason why you'd have an autoimmune disease. And here's why. Remember that with an autoimmune disease, your immune system is basically on fire. Your immune system is consistently recognizing an invader and consistently having to do something about it until we think, medicine, doctors, they think that your immune system is screwing up and it's attacking something. Let me remind you that your immune system, your body is way too smart for that and it never screws up. Something's wrong, and that's the reason why this is happening. So when you get a vaccination, that vaccine has what's called an adjuvant. An adjuvant is something most commonly, almost always, it's aluminum. And the adjuvant is used to basically kick your immune system in the face and get it pissed off and ready to go, because the attenuated virus and what they have in the vaccine, attenuated virus, bacteria, whatever, is not strong enough to actually initiate an immune response. So if they don't put an adjuvant in there, your body is never going to start producing antibodies for it. And so we have to recognize that heavy metals don't leave the body. You don't inject aluminum into the body like it's not supposed to be and just expect it to disappear. So when you leave a heavy metal in the body, it's ejected into the body, it does cross the blood-brain barrier. And ultimately, anywhere in the body, the immune system is going to constantly recognize that as an invader, and it's going to constantly have to be addressing that over and over and over again. So either your immune system is so busy addressing the present adjuvants and whatever else is in there from the vaccines that it doesn't take care of business over here, and cancer starts to develop, we have other issues, or that part of the body where the metal is at, that part of the body the immune system is constantly forced to be overactive in, is where the body develops autoimmune disease. And I've spoke about this at length with a doctor named Dr. Judy Mikovits. She used to be way up there in the National Cancer Institute. And our thought process, theory, I mean, she's backed it up by science, but it's wherever your body is the weakest. If you have a problem with your pancreas, it's probably going to turn it into type 1 diabetes. Mm-hmm. If you have a problem with your, whatever that part of the body is, that's usually where the autoimmune disease is going to be expressed. And so the solution to the autoimmune disease is to get whatever is causing your immune system to be constantly on fire, get that out of the body through detox. You can work on your immune system and reduce inflammation with a number of different supplements. But modern medicine in all of its, they're going to tell you that your immune system is the problem, and they're going to give you drugs that try to suppress and shut up your immune system. And that makes no sense whatsoever, because your immune system is doing the right thing at the right time. And until you take out the cause of the problem, it's not going to stop doing its job. So if you tell it to shut up or kill it with low-dose chemotherapy or Humira, autoimmune-related drugs are the number one selling drug pharma has right now across the entire world. Really? And so again, we're right back to this. Hey, we're going to vaccinate everybody. We're going to create autoimmune diseases, and then when no one knows what the hell to do about it, we'll give them this drug called Humira to suppress their immune system, because we're going to convince them their immune system has a problem. And now we have vaccines that make us billions, and we have the number one selling pharmaceutical drug in the whole world. Good plan. There we go.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense from a profit perspective. I was just reading some stats the other day, and I wish I could remember them, but they're not coming to me at the moment, but it was just basically cross-referencing the amount of autoimmune diseases that are prevalent today with the inception of vaccines and this current vaccine schedule. And it's like, it's something crazy, like 500% increase in autoimmune diseases since the early 1990s when they started going heavy on the vaccines. And I mean, the evidence is just there, you know, it's crazy.
To branch out from vaccines a little bit, genetically modified food is recognized as an invader in the body. We're not designed to have that. So that's another invader, and you consistently eat that. So your immune system's got to do something when there's a foreign invader. We've got a lot of people have metal in their mouth. So there's mercury toxicity. There's polluted water. So they're getting heavy metal from fish and things like that. But very simplistically put, if there's something in your body that shouldn't be there, your immune system will never quit doing its job. And when it does its job so well for so long that you have other problems arise, that's what they're calling an autoimmune disease. But it's not a problem with your immune system.
Yeah, that's so true. And it makes so much sense because just like with cholesterol, and these are like these fake numbers that can be brought up and down and manipulated with medication. Same thing with your immune system. They just bring it down with a drug and not really ever addressing what's causing. You know, I don't think really medical doctors want to get to the real cause because, I mean, I feel for medical doctors. I really do. Because if you think about the amount of overhead they have and the amount of debt and their lifestyle and their people and their rent and their insurance and all this stuff that they got to see like 30 patients a day just to be able to pay their bills, you know, and they don't have time to research. And it's the system that's got them into this whole thing. The problem is, you know, I've run into so many of them that think they're God's gift to creation and they're up on all the research when in actuality they're not. But I do feel bad. I wouldn't want to be one right now because patients are becoming informed patients. And that's just the worst thing to a medical doctor. You know, patients asking questions, you know.
This will sound kind of weird, but as a chiropractor, I don't really like it when patients come in with back pain. What I mean by that is the majority of my patients are here because they recognize that when I adjust their spine and nervous system, their body functions at a higher level. So they're here to sleep better, have better sex drive, have more energy, be happier, feel optimistic. Like that's why people come to my office after they're done healing from whatever disease or problem it was. But even when I have 4 or 5 people go, "Oh God, doc, it hurts right here. Can you flip the pain?" I'm like, "Oh my God, you want me to chase pain again?" And I know that's like next level chiropractic philosophy, but I'm only saying that because I can only imagine being a medical doctor sitting there, patient after patient after patient. "Hey doc, actually what you did last time, I'm worse and I have more symptoms and I feel worse than I did last week and I'm more," and they have only 2 solutions. It's just drugs or surgery. And I just can't, I mean, they're like handcuffed. "I would love to help you, but all I know how to do is poison you." Mm-hmm. Like it's got to be a pretty crappy job. So I guess all we can do is say, if you're watching this and you're thinking about having your kids go to medical school, you're watching this and you're on path to being a physician, a medical physician, then please either quit and go do something else or go all the way and work in an ER, be a surgeon, save lives, do something. But if you stop short and you're a family care practitioner, you're just furthering the epidemic, and ultimately you're just giving people drugs that aren't fixing anything.
Mm-hmm. This medical doctor friend of ours, he gave up his license because of a lot of different reasons, but you know, he was telling me that whenever he was in the ER, because he was an anesthesiologist, you know, in his former life kind of thing, and if something ever happened under his care or with the surgeon he was working with a patient under surgery, if something ever happened, all the medical board wanted to know is, did you follow the standard of care? If the answer was yes, then they were free and absolved of any wrongdoing. If the answer was no, then further investigation was needed. And he was saying to me, like, to date, I haven't met a standard human. How is there such a thing as a standard of care? But in the medical world, that's all that matters, you know? It's crazy.
I'm friends with a pediatrician, and he doesn't want me to tell his name, but he's a really well-known pediatrician. Some of you guys have probably read one of his books. But he is not on board with vaccinations at all, but he has patients that come to his office and say, "Hey, we want vaccines." So he created a much slower schedule, and he has, let's delay him, let's space him out kind of a thing. And the CDC is creating issues, so his state board came back on him, and he is in the midst of basically arguing that he's doing the right thing, and they're coming after his license. And so RFK's foundation, the Childhood Health Defense, I believe it's called, they sent somebody over to his office, and this guy came in and started reviewing all the records so that they could show that what he was doing was actually still helping people. And I don't have the exact numbers, but what they found was that with his slower vaccine schedule, it was something like one in every, it was like 1 in every 500 kids that he vaccinated with this actually slower schedule ended up with autism. And then they compared that to right now with the current CDC schedule and the fact that it's 1 in 45. And then the ones that were non-vaccinated, I think it was 1 in every 700 came up with autism. We didn't discuss exactly why. There's lots of reasons. The point is that he showed with straight up statistics from his own practice that he's got way healthier patients by not following the CDC schedule. So would you like me to follow the schedule and end up with 1 in 45 autism? And it was kind of a stalemate at this point.
Mm-hmm. That's crazy. It's crazy. You know what? I would not want to be a pediatrician. Could you imagine being a pediatrician today? Could you imagine? That'd be horrible.
Well, I think there's there's some good pediatricians. I know some great ones.
But talk about stress, right?
Well, yeah, because everybody that's your colleagues are out to get you, and ultimately, if you're not going to do it, then they'll just find someone else that will do it. But I don't know. I mean, my kids have never been to a pediatrician. For me, quite honestly, and this is not to pick on pediatricians, but I just don't understand why you take your kid to a pediatrician. It just makes no sense. You get a quality chiropractor, you get a chiropractor, you can go to ICPA for kids. You want to pull that website up, it's ICPA, the number 4 kids.com. And that's a website where you can find a chiropractor certified in pediatrics. There's a number of other chiropractors out there. You can just call and say, hey, do you take care of kids? Yeah, we see lots of kids. Those are your pediatricians. If you want to have your children be super healthy, chiropractors are primary care physicians. And so you don't have to go into a medical pediatrician's office. And if you're not going to vaccinate, my question is, what are you doing there? Like, you have a ruler, right? You have a tape measure. You can measure your kid's head and like how tall they are and weigh them and then compare them against all the other normal kids around the world. Mm-hmm. So if you're not interested in getting pushed into vaccinations, you're not worried about comparing your kids to other kids, and your kids are eating well, getting adjusted, they're not toxic, and they're healthy, what's the point? I don't get it. They serve no purpose other than furthering the vaccine schedule.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And there is a good book on Amazon if you guys are interested called How to Raise a Healthy Child Despite Your Doctor. And it's by a guy by the name of Dr. Robert Mendelsohn. And I'll put the link for that up in just a second. But he's basically saying the same exact thing as Dr. Baker is here, that we can do all these things ourselves. And of course, if you have, some real extenuating circumstances or something that's really kind of odd, unique, and different, then, it makes sense. But for the most part, I believe, Doc, that like comparing our kids in the 20th, 30th, 90th percentile, I just feel like all of that stuff is just designed to get people into labels and groups and categories. And then you want to manage those categories, and you have to have a doctor to explain what those categories mean to you. It's all designed to keep you in that loop, that weird loop of going back, isn't it? It's so strange.
You know what? Some of the vaccines actually have antibiotics in the vaccine. And so they're giving your child antibiotics without you even knowing it. And 3 out of 4 children right now in the United States, 3 out of 4 will have more than one ear infection before the age of 3. And an ear infection is the number one reason why moms and dads take their kids back to the pediatrician so that the pediatrician can give them more antibiotics. And when they give more antibiotics, they further wreck their gut, because antibiotics don't just kill the bad bacteria, they kill all the good bacteria as well. So now we have kids with messed up guts, and we wonder why their immune system is not working very well and they're sick all the time, and they keep getting more ear infections and having more issues. Look, it doesn't matter whether it's your child or you as an adult. You do not need to go to a medical doctor outside of crisis and emergency care, and thank God we have them for that. But everything other than that, it comes right back to understanding how the body heals. Remove the interference, get adjusted, eat better, exercise, think some better thoughts, and you're going to heal. That's just the way it works.
Mm-hmm. So, Doc, we're kind of running low on time, but I want to really get into this Project 180, because I was looking at this work that you're doing, and thank you for giving me access. And I was looking through it yesterday, and man, talk about a wealth of information for people. Can you talk a little bit about this Project 180, what it does for people, and who it's for, and what you have inside there? And do you mind if I show a couple pages of the inside?
No, not at all.
Okay, cool.
You guys, if you're watching this, you're one of probably three kinds of people. You're the person that is completely 100% vaccines save the world and they're the greatest thing ever. You're not necessarily the person I created this for, because I don't think you're going to change your mind. The second kind of person is somebody who is kind of on the fence. You're not quite sure. You've heard things from this side, heard things from that side, and you're like, dude, I don't have time to do all the research. Well, I did it for you. I spent hundreds of hours. If you look right there on the left side, each one of those is the name of the vaccine on the childhood schedule. Uh-huh. And then I do a video, and every video is right at 180 seconds or less. That one's 309. But if you go down and click on the blue button right below the video, it says View Manuscript, then it pulls up what we're calling a manuscript, which is basically a storyline of everything I do in the video. It has all the main wow factor stats that you want to know. It has where are these vaccines, where's the HIV hidden in, because they're going to name it different stuff. What are the odds of your child getting it? What are the problems with the vaccine? What are the side effects? What are the adverse events reported? And then if you go down to the bottom there, it's got all the research, and so you don't have to worry about it. It's all been fact-checked by an immunologist who used to work for pharma, and now she works for us with Project 180. And if you click on any of those, they're hyperlinked, which means they'll take you right directly to the peer-reviewed article, or we actually use the CDC stats, which are always lower as far as problems, and they always lie about it. So we're actually, when we're making a point, we even use, for lack of better terms, the other side's statistics. The other kind of people, the third type of person, is somebody who, you're like me, like you see right through it. You know that vaccines are not the answer. You know that they make people sick. You know that you don't need them, but everyone else is calling you crazy. Everybody's like, oh, well, show me your research, or, oh, I can't believe your unvaccinated kid is a danger to my vaccinated kid. If you're that person, what this does for you is basically give you the opportunity to just hand someone a piece of paper and go, here's mine, where's yours? Because when you have all your ducks in a row, you have all the research backing up why you chose to not give them the HIV vaccine, the HPV vaccine, or the measles vaccine, then you hand them all that research and it's all legit. They have nothing else to say. They're like, oh, well, I don't believe. Well, are we back to philosophy? Because I can talk philosophy all day long. But the point of Project 180 is watch the video, watch how I tear it apart, and then just say the same thing I say basically, and then hand them the paper to back it up. We also have exemptions. So if you go down, that's a video of me talking about exemptions and how to use them. Uh-huh. And then if you scroll down right there, I literally went through every single state. And there's 9 different scenarios or circumstances that the CDC provides for each state. Each state has possibly 9 different situations. So right there, I took right out of the legislation page, 511-2-2-07. That's the actual exemption in your state's law
Wow.
So it is law that you have to vaccinate, but right here in the law as well says you don't have to if you have a religious exemption. So again, it's all hyperlinked, so it'll take you right to the source. But ultimately, we created a state-specific exemption for 46 different states, and all you do is go on there and print that and notarize it, sign it, have the school sign it so that you have your records that they took it and accepted it. And in 46 states, you no longer have to take your child and get vaccinated in order to take them to school, daycare, or sports. If they're licensed by the state, they have to follow state vaccination laws, which means they also have to follow state exemption.
Yeah, and that's a big deal, what you're talking about there. And what's cool is that you can have them sign this information. So let me see here. Vaccine state exemptions. If I go by state again, let me go to Arizona, for example. So you have the name of the child, name of the parent, the school, the date, and then you have them sign. And this is really cool. So parents could essentially take this information and get the school to sign it and let them into the school?
Yeah, so what schools will do is they'll hand you an exemption, like they'll hand you some paperwork, and when you sign it, they're basically trying to make you look like you're a bad parent. Oh, I understand my kid could die. I understand that there's, I'm putting him at risk. You don't have to do that. Mm-hmm. And so with each state, I went through, if you go back to one of the states and we go to one of the pages, I'll show you. But
yeah, let me go I'll go to Connecticut next here. Okay.
So if we go down into Connecticut, go all the way to the last page.
Okay.
So right here, that page right there was the notary. Some states require it notarized, some don't. But why not just have it notarized so you look more bulletproof, right? So you show up and you have a document that's been notarized. They don't say anything.
I know.
Keep
I like
going
that.
Down.
That's great.
And so right here is the page that talks about your specific state. And that's stuff that I got off of the National Vaccine Information Center. And there's a link to that page. And then also the CDC. If you click on the CDC link right there.
Okay, got this. Okay.
So what that does is that page right there talks to you about different CDC requirements. And you scroll down a little bit, it gives you this big-ass pie chart.
Oh, God. Look at this.
And that pie chart is what I had to decipher to figure out which scenario and situation is applicable to each state.
Jeez. That is nuts.
I know. I spent hours doing this. So I did all the homework for you guys. And so you buy Project 180 and you have all the videos. So some people you're going to talk to, maybe your father-in-law is like, I don't want to read the research. Just have them watch one of my videos. And they're going to go, oh, actually, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Hey,
so
I'm curious.
It's either going to make sense. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm curious about, I'm just clicking here on the MMR. And you mentioned earlier on the show about, how certain doctors or pediatricians are basically trying to separate these things out. And I'm a fan, if you're going to get a vaccine, you got to separate them out. But the MMR seems like one of those ones that they just don't make in a single for mumps, measles, and rubella. They somehow, for some reason, combine them. Is there a way to separate those out, do you think?
Not in the United States. It doesn't exist anymore. And the MMR vaccine, actually, this is a little bit going down a rabbit hole, but I'll make it a long story short. The MMR vaccine has the same genetic material from an aborted fetus in the 1960s. It's not changed. And that aborted baby, little baby boy, his mom was psychotic. She was in a psych ward and on psych meds. And he, so if there's a mention of a video in one of the manuscripts, you click on that, it'll take you directly to that video on YouTube as well. This is actually a video of them killing cancer with measles.
Oh my gosh. That's unreal. That's unreal.
So what they did, there's a company in Italy and they did genome testing and they found out that the DNA sequence they've been using to grow the MMR vaccine actually has cancer promoting genes in it. So we're actually injecting our kids with genes that promote cancer, literally. And so we wonder why childhood cancers are going up. And of course, they're not going to replace that vaccine with a different one because that one's already set up perfectly to cause cancer in humans and then for the industry.
Yeah. So this is what I like about what you've done is that there's so many different aspects of the vaccine industry, the history of it, what they're doing with it, its impact on the immune system, it's short-term and long-term with chronic degenerative diseases, what's in the vaccines. There's so much to it. But what's cool about your Project 180 is like you've put everything into like really condensable, busy moms, busy parents that are trying to find some research that's quick and easy and that they can just have bulletproof arguments for this, right? I mean, that's what I like about it.
We live in a culture right now where everybody's busy. And I know if you're watching this, you're taking time out of your day to watch this, and that's really cool. But I know you got stuff piling up. You got kids to take care of. You got a house. You got all kinds of things. So, yeah, you don't want to spend, with all due respect to Vaccines Revealed and these different docuseries, I'm a nerd with this stuff, and I did not watch all 9 hours of that docuseries. I caught an hour and a half maybe.
Yeah.
So I wanted you guys to have, 3 to 5 minute chunks that you could watch and then hit print. And there's no other product out there. There's no other website. There's no other thing like this where you can hit print and now you're arming yourself with the condensed version. It's already Reader's Digest version, and it's backed up. It's fact checked. It's legit.
You know what I thought was really interesting is a former guest of our show was talking once about vaccines, and he was saying that, a lot of women are and fathers are in fear because what they try to tell you is that, like, if you don't get vaccines, you're setting your kids up for, being susceptible to these deadly viruses, and these things are going to kill them. And what he was saying is people don't realize the work of guys and pioneers like Dr. Frederick Klenner, who in the early 1900s or 1940s, I think it was, he was having full-blown reversals of people who had polio that were in a coma using high-dose vitamin C therapy, IV injections, along with ultraviolet blood irradiation. So he was completely reversing polio, smallpox, rubella, mumps, chickenpox, all these deadly diseases using these therapies, but you don't hear about him ever. But it's nice to know that there's therapies like this that are out there, that if your kid does ever come down with something like this, then they have options. It's not like we're leaving our children with zero options here, right?
I think we should talk about that. And I think, honestly, one of the gems on Project 180 is the 1% document. And so if you pull that up, I'd love to show people that. Mm-hmm. You guys, every single thing that they vaccinate for, outside of measles and chickenpox, and I'll talk about that in a second, everything that they vaccinate for, you and your children had less than a 1% chance of getting that at the peak, like at the epidemic of that disease. So if you click on the view manuscript again.
Let's do it. Okay.
So if you go to diphtheria, the first diphtheria vaccine came out in 1921, 206,000 cases. That sounds like a lot until you compare it to the population and realize that you had a 0.19% chance of getting diphtheria, and that was back in 1921. Well, the treatment for diphtheria is antibiotics. It came out in 1940s. And so in the video, I actually talk about how many people died, but that was before there was even treatment for it. And you go through every one of these. Hepatitis A, 0.012% chance of getting it before the vaccine. Hep B, this is if you were living that lifestyle, 0.0071% chance. HIV, I mean, you go through this and you have to at least ask yourself, why am I even concerned about these? Why am I even spending the gas money? Even if I thought the vaccine worked, your child has a higher risk of getting struck by lightning than getting an HIV infection. Literally.
I know. I want to read what you have here for measles for those that are listening on the podcast version. The highest number of reported measles cases was 894,134, which was in 1941. In 1941, the U.S. population was 133 million and change. This means that in the year of the biggest outbreak, you had a 0.67% chance of getting the measles. In 1960, before the vaccine was introduced in 1963, there were 380 deaths in a population of 1.8 million. That means your chance of death was 0.00, is that 3021%? For dying of the measles. It's crazy.
Some of those other ones, like your chance of getting chickenpox, and one of the things that an immunologist pointed out to me is that almost everybody used to get measles. And so I'm not saying that the chance of getting measles in your lifetime was 0.67%, but I'm saying that in that given year, each given year, there was less than a 1% chance of getting measles. But when we look back at it, I think that the thing I would look at is the number of deaths. If you had, again, if you had less than a 0.5% chance of dying of something, you're not worried about it. You have a greater chance of your kids choking to death in their food or falling to their death. And you're not worried about that. So why are we worrying about it? Why are we even spending the time going and getting this vaccine that has, even if it had no potential side effects or problems, it's still a useless effort for something that you're not going to die from if you get it. And every one of these things that if you got it, you can treat it with antibiotics, or it makes you stronger. I've got research in here showing that if you were to get measles or chickenpox, you have lesser of a chance of having cardiovascular disease as an adult.
Wow, that's insane. That's so crazy. You know, there's a Dr. Thomas Cowan, you're probably familiar with him. He's written a whole book about this, and we had him on the show some time ago, and he was going on and on about, you know, he wasn't really doing a whole talk on what's in the vaccines and all the stuff that's in there that's toxic. He was saying, what does this do to the different arms of the immune system and cross-linking vaccines with cancers and other chronic degenerative diseases in your 80s and 90s? And he was showing clear evidence that these things are intricately connected. And so it's like, whether it's short-term or long-term, these things are affecting us and we don't know it, because if you don't have autism, you basically feel like you got around the vaccine, but somehow it's still affecting you, you know?
Two things. Number one is there's been no long-term studies whatsoever. They've never done a long-term study on any vaccine. And the majority of them, this should make you guys be pissed. When they compare a vaccine to what they call a placebo, which should be a saline solution, they don't even use a saline solution. They compare vaccine A to vaccine B. Or they compare vaccine A that has the antigen in it, the bacterial virus, to the exact same concoction that's just missing the bacterial virus. Still has the aluminum, still has the formaldehyde, still has the polysorbate 80, still has everything else. And then if the same number of people are damaged and hurt, then they say, well, couldn't have been the vaccine, they're safe. That's literally how they do vaccine research. It's the most asinine thing ever. And the other thing is, you sit there and you say, well, my child doesn't have vaccine damage because they don't have autism, just like you said. But if your child has eczema, that's vaccine damage. If your child has an ear infection, if they have asthma, if they have any sort of autoimmune related stuff, that is vaccine damage. There's no way around it.
Yeah, this stuff is pervasive, guys. And so I would highly recommend, what I like about this too is that you give all the research. So you're talking here about all these different things: measles, meningitis, the flu, the influenza, HPV, and all this stuff. And you're giving all the stats. But what's cool is that you're actually linking these stats to the actual research on the website. So this is, guys, if you're really interested in this, if you really want to arm yourself as a parent, as someone who is informed and really looking at the research, and you don't have all day, hours and hours to watch, 9 hours of a documentary, which I think those things are great. And if you have the time for it, that's amazing. But our world is so fast paced right now and crazy. And this, Doc, I just have to say thanks for putting all this stuff together. 'Cause I mean, how many hours do you think you spent on this to saving us doing that?
I am personally into it a minimum of 100. That's just the reading and pulling it together. My immunologist is into it close to 100, fact checking it. And then a lot of those links with NVIC and other websites, they were dead links. They weren't going anywhere. So she had to go back and run down that rabbit hole to the original source. So she's into it at least 100 hours. And then videography and web development is another probably 50 plus.
Do you think those links will ever be taken down? Because it's crazy how they're out there. They're available for public viewing. Do you think they'll ever be scrubbed from the internet and you have to do something else to provide that?
I think that they probably won't, because they're banking on those of us that care about this not putting in enough effort to run down that rabbit hole. I think that the average American just says, couldn't find it, whatever. And so I don't think they're going to get rid of them. It's a lot of stuff to get rid of. But the cool thing we're doing with 180 is we're launching next week in Spanish. And so
Cool.
We're going through and we have all the videos subtitled Spanish and all the documents have been translated. So we can start getting outside of the U.S. and also helping people in the U.S. that speak Spanish. But also the immunologist is going through and every time we find an issue with the link, she's going back and updating it. And so our first round of updates, it should be coming out in the next week or two. And then when you go on there, you'll be able to look at when the last one was updated. And if that doesn't match the date on yours, you just simply print the newest one and it's got all the updated information if we have to change links.
Man, Doc, what a project. It's like, what a lot of work that was, but it's helping so many people, I would imagine, you know.
I've gotten a lot of great responses. A couple parents have emailed me. They said, hey man, we went into the school, handed it to them, and it's like they were deer in headlights. They didn't know what to do because no one ever did it with such certainty and no one ever had notarized documents. They just took them and said, oh, okay. And then I got another email from a lady who her brother-in-law is an MD and he always gives her crap for not vaccinating. And so she just started handing him paper after paper after paper and he hasn't said anything since.
Wow, that's crazy. It's like the equivalent of those doctors, you know, if you cure yourself of cancer, you know, using some alternative method or natural method, and you tell the doctor just says, you know, whatever you're doing, just keep doing it, but don't talk to me about it, right?
Right, exactly. And then the other thing that we're going to do is I've made quite a few connections with different MDs and lawyers that are on board with this. So we're going to start adding more and more content to it. And so it was, like I said, it's 250 hours just to get what we have. And it's not easy to dump all my time into it as I run a full-time practice and see patients. But we're going to continue to add to it. And so you guys will continue to have bonus material, if you will, from other medical doctors and lawyers. And one of the big goals that I have with it, and once you have a membership of 180, you have access to all the stuff I'm talking about, which is cool. But one of the big goals is we're going to start networking with lawyers around the country and basically create an anti-CPS network. So if you have CPS breathing down your neck, you just go, well, hold on one second, call your lawyer and go, here, talk to my lawyer, and CPS just walks the other direction.
Yeah, that's the thing, is getting involved and getting people to understand law and contract law and how all this stuff works together, and really understanding that this entire system we live in is it's a system based on monetary gain, you know, and from our birth certificate on, all the way from cradle to grave, the whole system is designed to keep us sick, to keep us tired, to keep us in debt and trusting the system to continue to earn profit off of us. And you start going down that rabbit trail of CPS and how that started and, you know, law and what it's all designed to do. I mean, it's a whole nother rabbit trail that we could spend, you know, months and years on, but we got to get educated, right? If we're going to exist in this modern society.
Yeah, I would encourage you guys to look into your states. You could also email, if you're on Facebook, go on and like Health Freedom Idaho, even if you don't live in Idaho, but if you live in Idaho, definitely do it. Email them and ask them questions. There's becoming more and more health freedom organizations around the country in different states.
Uh-huh.
But the woman that runs Health Freedom Idaho, or one of the people that runs it, she is the one that's starting all this CPS stuff, and we're working together to try to make it so that you don't have to live in fear. Right? So we're dismissing the fear about each of the diseases we vaccinate for, and then what we want to do from there is try to dismiss the fear that if you don't vaccinate, they're not going to come take your kids or punish you, and try to help you understand how to get through that process. So it's not there yet. I'm just saying, look for it and start looking for those kind of things in your state. But we'll be sending emails out to everybody who's a member of Project 180 as soon as we start getting that stuff put together.
Mm-hmm. Man, Doc, thanks so much for just being out there and being willing to speak about this and to be, you know, put your neck on the line and take criticism, because, you know, this is a crazy, crazy world, and there's doctors getting their licenses, you know, revoked for doing the stuff that you're doing. So thank you for putting yourself out there like this. I really appreciate it.
I've gotten, the funny thing is, the hate mail and all the, you know, negative, mean things that people say is actually gotten less and less over the last year or so.
Mm-hmm.
I think they realize I'm just not going anywhere. And I'm also not sitting here telling people not to vaccinate. I'm just trying to provide a legitimate other side of the story. It's not in my scope of practice to give medical or vaccine recommendations, but it's completely in my scope of practice to educate people so they can make whatever decision they want to make. So there's nothing that they can ever do or say about my license because I'm completely within the parameters of my license. I practice chiropractic, but I can educate on whatever topic I want and give people resources to go out and learn for themselves. And that's what doctors should be doing.
Mm-hmm. And guys, I mean, when was the last time you saw, a medical doctor on the internet trying to educate people and make their patients more informed? It's usually the opposite. And so this is what's so great about natural and alternative medicine and chiropractic care and doctors that are out there that are like this. They're trying to empower the patient. And so I just think it's completely the opposite of the medical model. But thank God for the medical model, because you break a bone, you want, surgery, you don't want
shot,
herbs.
Stabbed, or need a surgery. Thank God we have it, right? It's,
right. Completely.
When my life is in danger, thank you. I appreciate you. I respect you for saving lives. But the system itself has gotten so far twisted and perverted that it's not about saving lives. 95% of the time, it's about pushing drugs.
Mm-hmm. I agree. All right, Doc. Well, I've taken a lot of your time, so I really appreciate your time today. And man, just thank you for your work. I really appreciate it so much. And if you have anything you want to let people know about, any upcoming projects, anything going on with your practice, or do you see patients via Skype, or if someone wants to connect with you, how would they do that?
I have patients that drive from other states. I have people that fly in from other countries. Okay. Whether you've only got 3 days with me, or you can come and stay for a couple months. Ultimately, if you're not finding a chiropractor in your area, you're not finding somebody who's actually helping you to turn a corner, then you're welcome to come to Boise, Idaho, and be a part of the office for as long as you can. But if you want to book a phone consultation, we do 15-minute consults. You can call my office phone number. It's 208-810-0000. It's pretty easy number to remember. 208-81, all the rest are zeros. And if you hit extension 1, that'll take you to my front desk, and they can schedule an online 15-minute phone consult. And other than that, be patient with me. I'm working on a lot of back-end website stuff. I'm trying to have an area where I can give you a lot of lifestyle recommendations, my recommendation on supplements, products, things like that. I'm trying to expand this vaccine thing into different languages and add more doctors, and then getting ready to write a book as well, so you can really understand healing at the highest level and then implement that with all the different solutions that are out there. So be patient with me. Follow me on Facebook. I think that's probably my most active place. I do a lot of videos on Facebook, and yeah, they get censored, but if you're following, then usually you can catch some good stuff each week.
Okay, cool. Gosh, busy guy. That's super cool. Well, Doc, thank you again, and we'll put links to everything that you talked about on today's show. So keep fighting the good fight and keep doing what you're doing. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, man. Appreciate everything. Have a great day. See you guys.
All right. Thanks, Doc. I appreciate it so much. All right, guys, we're going to be right back. We're going to take a little bit of a break. I hope you enjoyed that a lot. So I got some things to share with you, and we're going to be right back right after this.
We hope you're enjoying this episode. Thanks for being on this health journey with us, and don't forget to check out biochargeme.com for hundreds of health products to build a better you.
Yeah, biochargeme.com or biocharge.me is our store if you want to support the work that we do and look at some really cool products. We're updating that on a regular basis, and they have everything on there that we talk about, and it's a really cool website. So I hope you guys enjoy that, and thanks for supporting us, for any of the health products that you might have in mind. I really appreciate that a lot. One of the things that I wanted to tell you about was a sale going on right now with Matt Blackburn and his product PUFA Protect. So recently we just did a whole entire show on vitamin A and with Dr. Garrett Smith, but he talked about vitamin E, which is the main component in PUFA Protect, which is polyunsaturated fatty acids, and its relationship to vitamin A. And we sell the best vitamin E product on the market through Mitolife on our store. And check out what Dr. Smith has to say about vitamin E and vitamin A.
We are trying to undo decades of poisoning in people. And we do find that younger people tend to go through it much faster. And as people get older, it takes longer because it accumulates. Like people will talk about fat-soluble vitamins accumulating. Well, I don't think vitamin A is a vitamin. I call vitamin D a hormone. So that really only leaves 2 fat-soluble vitamins, and that's E and K.
Mm-hmm.
And I have papers showing very obviously that vitamin E is both depleted by vitamin A and is protective against vitamin A toxicity. So, and vitamin E, I believe the stats were the US government said that 95% of people in this country don't get enough vitamin E from foods every day. So all of a sudden you go, well, vitamin E protects you from vitamin A. We're kind of screwed.
I love Dr. Smith. So he did a whole show, I think it was episode 629, maybe it was, about vitamin A toxicity, which is crazy. But anyway, vitamin E gets lowered by vitamin A, but it also protects the body from vitamin A. But what the vitamin E is doing is helping to detoxify this polyunsaturated fatty acid, which is what they also call lipofuscin or lipid peroxidation, which is the rancidity of these different oils combined with iron in the body. And if you look at your skin, you might notice you have little age spots, and that is what they call lipofuscin. It's not liver spots, it's excess oxidized polyunsaturated fatty acids, and this is what damages the body over time. And this product by Matt Blackburn at Mitolife called PUFA Protect is exactly helps to detoxify. So let me bring this up on the screen if you guys are interested on Biocharge Me. He's got some really great enzymes. He's got one called the Gluten Savior. I don't really take that one because I don't really eat gluten, but I take his Dissolve It All and Digest It All. So I'm really pleased to be able to stand behind an enzyme product. Finally, I've been playing around with enzymes for years, and it's really great to be able to stand behind not just a friend of mine, but a good, legitimate guy and an amazing product. I'm also taking his Shilijit powder resin right now, which is incredible product. So if you're in the market for some enzymes and a Shilijit and a PUFA Protect vitamin E, check out biocharge.me or this particular show page, which is extremehealthradio.com/632. I believe we're on. Yeah, and if you guys are watching on YouTube and you want to sign up for the Project 180, there's a link in the description of this video for Project 180 if you guys are interested in learning more about that. But also, I wanted to tell you guys about a really, really great product that I'm just a big fan of and I use on a regular basis. And we did an entire show about air. And if you go to our store, you'll see that I have different topics or different categories at the top. And I believe those are the categories that are the most beneficial, like that move the needle the most, like air, water, light, magnetism, these types of things that are really critical for our health. And we did a show recently with David Milburn about air and making sure that we're breathing high quality air, and we breathe like the equivalent of almost a football field of air every single day into our lungs, and it's crazy, crazy, crazy. So if you are looking for an air purifier to bring into your home, into your office or your bedroom, which I would recommend both of those places, your office and your bedroom where you spend the most amount of time. These things are the highest quality air purifiers on the market. They're the best by far. They get rid of chemicals. They get rid of all the different chemicals and toxins that are floating around in our air. By the way, according to our show with Stephanie Seneff, she's now talking about glyphosate being in the air. Isn't that crazy? Glyphosate is in the air that we're breathing, along with all the chemicals from tire dust, but also, according to Barbara Frank, we did a whole show on parasites recently. Parasites are in the air as well as fungus. And so they have these really great hypoallergenic air purifier systems that I would really recommend putting these things throughout your home. And if you use the code, let me get this for you. I'll get the code and put it in the show notes of this, but you'll get 10% off. And you can watch the show that we did with David Milburn on his products and what they're doing over there at Hypo Air. So I'm really happy to be finally standing behind a great product and a really great guy. So if you guys are interested in that, I'll put links to the Hypo Air over at extremehealthradio.com/632. That way you can check out the Hypo Air Purifiers and all that good stuff. And I want to talk with you guys about CPS and what Dr. Baker was talking about. So I'm curious what your thoughts are about that. And I have a couple ideas about CPS from the research that I've done. And so we'll be right back right after this.
Extreme Health Radio is your #1 resource for cutting-edge biohacks, news, and information about how to upgrade every area of your health. Subscribe to our newsletter so you don't miss a thing.
Yeah, guys, if you want to keep up to date with our shows, we're doing them twice a week right now on Mondays and Fridays, live on YouTube, and for as long as they will have us. But I highly recommend signing up to our newsletter. We let you guys know about all that good stuff happening through our newsletter, and it's one of those platforms that I think if we get deplatformed, it's going to be one of those things that we are able to hold on to for the longest amount of time. So make sure to join our newsletter so that you get access to everything we have going on Extreme Health Radio. So I'm curious what you guys thought about Dr. Baker. I just love what he's doing, and I love the work that he's doing, and it's really cool because in today's modern world, we just don't have time. We just do not have enough time to do all this research. And, I don't know about you guys, but I side with him, and that is like there's a lot of great books and documentaries and docu-series and all this cool stuff. But man, you got to have hours upon hours, and for me, we have twin boys, they're a year old right now, about 14, 16 months. And I just don't have time. I don't have time to go through all that research. So I'm really, really stoked and honored that he did all this work. So I'm curious what you guys think. And so with the CPS thing, this is a really interesting concept. I've got a couple minutes here before I have to go back home in about 20 minutes. So I've got about 5 or 10 minutes. I can hang out with you guys and talk with you about the CPS thing. And like we were mentioning on the show, that this whole CPS thing, for every child that CPS takes and enters into the foster system, I believe they're worth around $8,000 to $10,000. So it's a profitable business for CPS to come and take your child and to put them into the foster care system. And unfortunately, like we mentioned before, this whole system is designed like there's 4,000 new laws that are generated every year in America. And then the reason for that is not to keep you safe and to keep a more civilized society. The reason is to make money. It's as simple as that. Your birth certificate itself, most people don't realize, like the most profitable and rich corporation in the world, people think, oh, it's Apple or, oh, it's Microsoft or whatever. It's actually the DTC. And their own, that's a child company of the parent company, DTCC, which is in 54 Water Street. And that company owns all of the titles and all of the paperwork. Like your birth certificate is worth, I think, in the hundreds of billions of dollars. So you're an economic engine for the country that you live in. You have creativity that's wrapped in your birth certificate. So the potential of that is hundreds of billions of dollars. And all of those titles are stored somewhere. And they're stored by the Depository Trust Company, the DTC, 54 Water Street. You can find them in New York City, and they're owned by the DTCC, but you never hear about these companies. And they are literally the most profitable and most, profitable company in the entire world, because they own the trusts for not just people and the birth certificates. The DTC owns the birth certificates for everyone who lives in America, the United Kingdom, Australia, New Zealand, and Canada. And so this is like, trillions and trillions of dollars that they have the ownership over, because that's how much your birth certificate is worth. And by the way, your birth certificate is also borrowed upon in the New York Stock Exchange. So you're literally collateral. That's why it's against the law to commit suicide because you're worth a lot of money, right? So unfortunately, this is just the nature of the existence in the world that we live in. We're worth hundreds of billions of dollars of economic potential for our government. So with that in mind, this is why it makes so much sense that the CPS would come and take your child, because it's a money-making endeavor for them. It's not about keeping your child safe. It's about making money. And so unfortunately, to fully understand how to combat the CPS, what you should have done and what I should have done, and I knew all this going into our birth of our children, but when your child has a birth certificate and a social security number, it becomes much more difficult, because it's at that time that the state actually owns your child. And I see a lot of people complaining about children's rights and this, that, and the other, but these are the same people that are arguing for civil rights, and we don't want civil rights, right? Civil rights are not what we want. We want our God-given rights as a creature, as a free living being living on the earth. And so civil rights are given to and taken away by the government that you live in. We don't want civil rights. We want our inalienable rights. That is our God-given rights. And so people don't understand that if your child has a birth certificate, if your child has a social security number, what our children do, they were born in a hospital. We were going to do a home birth, but we had some complications at the end. But it becomes much more difficult. So what you can do is file a lien against your child. That's one way to deal with that. If you file a lien against your child, then CPS has to go through that lien process. And if there's someone whose lien is coming up before theirs, which yours would, because you're the parent of that child, you're the guardian of that child. They actually own the child. Like the Rockefellers once said, own nothing but control everything. Right? So you don't want to own things, you want to control things. And so they let us think that we own the children, but they control them. And so we're basically the guardians. We're the babysitters of our child, even though we think we're the owners and the parents and all this stuff. So you can file a lien against your child. That would be one thing you could do. You could also file paperwork that says that if something ever happens to you, or if CPS ever comes after your children, the first people that get custody is maybe your godparents or godparents of your children. So, these are all things that we should all consider if our children have paperwork, that is birth certificates and social security numbers. So this is all stuff that we have to consider in living in this world, is that now we're living in a world where we have to understand what our rights are and where we get those rights and our freedom and stuff like that. So it becomes really challenging for us, but I believe that we can really, if we understand the law and what contract law is, and really go down those rabbit trails. And I think that that's where true power is. The problem is filing a claim and standing and holding that claim in a legal way. That's the real issue. And so if you can stand on your claim and uphold that claim, then you have real power. You can basically do anything you want to do. So anyway, I hope you guys are really, really doing well today, and I want you to know that this Project 180 is something I think you should really look into. If you're watching on YouTube, there's a link below. I'd really recommend it. Well worth the money to buy. It's a one-time payment, and he has saved you hundreds of hours of work. What took him 100 hours might take you and I 300 or 400 hours trying to find the same information, because he sort of knows where to get it. So the world is changing, isn't it? The world is definitely changing. So if you enjoyed this episode, I would appreciate it, and so would Dr. Baker, to share it on social media while we still have social media at our access. So share it on social media, share it with your friends, tag us on Instagram. I'd really, really appreciate that. So this is the way this message gets out. It gets out through sort of guerrilla social media tactics, and that is for people to share information that actually changes the world. So this is the way we get the word out. So this world is so ate up, it's disgusting. Thanks for the awesome show, Tina says. This world is so ate up. Yeah, it's definitely much more challenging than it was in 1950, isn't it? But the propaganda has always been there. It's just that now we have the media to fully understand and see this propaganda at every level. So Symphony of Souls says, thank you, Justin, Stephen. Love everyone. Thank you all. Yeah. Angie says, thank you, Dr. Baker. Really appreciate that. Yeah. You know, it feels good to be aligned with guys like him who are actually doing the opposite of what medical doctors do, which is empowering patients, right? I mean, imagine if your medical doctor encouraged you to do the research, but they don't. They want you to trust in them and trust in what they say, rather than doing your own research. And Dr. Baker and other doctors like him that we have on the show are saying to do the exact opposite, right? Go empower yourself, learn, educate yourself, understand, you know, this information so that, you know, we actually have ways of empowering ourselves, right? Through education comes freedom, and fear absolves and fear fades away when freedom starts, you know, if a person has freedom. So, you know, it's really an amazing way to absolve fear is to educate yourself. Like Jim Rohn said, you know, education is where it's at. So if you enjoyed this show, please pass it on to your friends. We need everyone to know this information, to feel empowered. Not just people about vaccines, but people who are, you know, are doctors, or maybe people who are, you know, trying to learn more. So, yeah. Jesus is God, our Savior. Thanks for watching. Lorraine, Rebecca, Angie, all you guys in the chat room. I really appreciate it so much. And we don't know how long we're going to be on YouTube, so follow us by signing up to our newsletter. That would probably be the best way. So if we change platforms, we'll find out how long we can have our YouTube channel. But right now we have it, so we're going to use it to get the word out. So if you want to support the show, you can always go to biocharge.me. That's where all of our products live, and you can learn more about that by going to biocharge.me and looking at the different products. That's a great way to support the show. If you want to dive deeper with your health, we have the Extreme Health Academy, and I highly encourage you guys to join that. If you use the code EHR14, that will give you a free 2-week trial, and you can jump in the forums there, join the community, talk with me. I'm in the forums every single day. Lots of great information there that's going to be truly life-changing. Stuff that they should have taught in school, but they didn't. So that's the state of our world today. So join the Extreme Health Academy. And then also, if you shop on Amazon, we have a link on our homepage for Amazon. Go through our link, and that way we get a little commission there, and that helps to pay the bills, the internet connection for these shows, and all that good stuff. So I'd be curious to see what you guys think. So, yeah, share the show with your friends, and we'll be posting. If you're subscribed on iTunes or Stitcher, this show will be going out later tonight. So, love you guys all very, very much. You are amazing. Thanks for being here. We got a full show lined up next week coming up. We got 3 shows next week, so that's going to be a lot of fun. And stay tuned. The Wednesday show is going to be a live show with our doctor. He's a medical doctor, and he'll be joining us live in studio talking about natural birth. So that's going to be awesome. So we love you guys all so much. Subscribe and leave us a review. We would appreciate that on iTunes. And have a great weekend, and I'll see you on Monday at 10:45 a.m. Pacific time.
No material on this blog is intended to suggest that you should not seek professional medical care. Always work with qualified medical professionals, even if you educate yourself in the field of live food, nutrition, and alternative medicine. I'm not a doctor, nor am I offering readers medical advice of any kind. None of the information offered here should be interpreted as a diagnosis of any disease, nor an attempt to treat or prevent any disease or condition. While information in this blog is discussed in the context of numerous conditions, it can be dangerous to take action based on any information in this blog or to start any health program without first consulting a health professional. The content found here is for informational purposes only and is in no way intended as medical advice, as a substitute for medical counseling, or as a treatment/cure for any disease or health condition, and nor should it be continued as such. Always work with a qualified healthcare professional before making any changes to your diet, prescription drug use, lifestyle, or exercise activities. This information is provided as is, and the reader/viewer assumes all risks from the use, non-use, or misuse of this information.